Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon sessions. Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat. I hope you all enjoyed lunch and the sessions of the morning. My name is Cliff EALA. I will be moderating the session for this afternoon. We're having breakout tracks in the afternoon. You are now in the Good Enterprise track. The first session is with a good friend of mine, NANETTE MEDVED Po. She's the founder and chairperson of GenerationHope, Inc. As an impact company, Hope invests 100% of its profits to improve public school education infrastructure, agriculture interventions for smallholder farmers, and environmental initiatives in both the plastic waste and carbon sequestration spaces. Hope was awarded the grand prize at Developmental Social Enterprise Awards by PricewaterhouseCoopers and was recognized globally as the best new brand and best CSR by the Global Bottled Water Awards. Hope became the first certified B Corporation in the Philippines for meeting the highest standards of social and environmental transparency and accountability. Nanette is also the founder of Plastic Credit Exchange, Inc., or PCX, the first global nonprofit plastic offset program that has built a community committed to seeking out the most environmentally sound solutions for plastic waste. PCX takes plastic pledges from companies around the world and provides ways to offset those footprints through credible post-consumer plastic removal and processing systems. Nanette also serves on the board of trustees of WWF Philippines and the board of directors of Winrock International in Virginia. She recently received the NGO Leadership Award and Social Innovation Leadership Award from the Philippines Leadership Awards. She was also honored as one of Forbes' Heroes of Philanthropy. Nanette graduated summa cum laude with degrees in finance and entrepreneurship from Babson College in Massachusetts. Ladies and gentlemen, Nanette Medved Po.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here to talk about this very important topic. I'm going to try and present for a few minutes this afternoon, but let me see first if the tech is going to work. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if it works. Cliff, are you able to view my screen? I'm assuming this is working. All right, so I can't hear you guys. But either way, okay, so thank you again. I'm not sure about how many of you know of the work that we do at Hope. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes telling you first a little bit about what we do. We operate in kind of three major areas. The first one is our origin story, which is the Hope in a Bottle bottled water business that devotes 100% of our profits to the building of public school classrooms in partnership with the Department of Education. To date, we've impacted over 10,000 students, building over 100 structures around the country. And as Cliff so kindly mentioned, we are the Philippines' first B Corporation. After this started in like 2012, and as we started to progress our work in 2014, starting in 2014, we started the agriculture initiatives, and we basically invest in smallholder farmer initiatives in Mindanao. We do everything from planting new trees. In fact, you may have read it in the news, but recently we committed to plant about 1 million coconut trees in Mindanao over the next 12 months. We will have finished that by June of 2022, and we're on track. We have, other than the planting of new trees, which leads into this additionality in carbon sequestration, we also have the planting of intercropping in between the trees. We provide farmer training, livestock support, as well as market access for smallholder farmers in Mindanao. We work with about 10,000 farmers. Recently our most, I think we are officially registered, I think in 2019, we have the plastic credit exchange, which was born out of the experiences we had in Hope in a Bottle, making sure that we were trying to be as responsible as possible for the plastic that we use in our supply chains. Of course, there was a lot of iteration, and we eventually came up with a way for us to be 100% responsible for our plastic footprint. And we wound up becoming the world's first nonprofit plastic offset program, offering plastic neutrality for brands who are willing to take full responsibility. At the moment, it's a nonprofit. Well, actually, it's also becoming a for-profit in both the Singapore and US entities. But basically, we operate in these areas. We have for-profits in the PCX space as well as in the GenerationHope space. So I think what we're trying to demonstrate here is that we have a little bit of experience in attempting to be good stewards of the future. So from all the evidence around us, we think it's obvious that, the problem is business as usual didn't serve us well. It didn't work. In the past, I think businesses were very concerned about chasing their quarterly earnings, and it didn't help us in the way that we thought it would. And so what we have found not only through our own work, but kind of operating within this social good space, is that the way of the future is that you have a profit plus a purpose model. And basically that means that you look out not just for the owners or the shareholders within your universe, your stakeholder universe, but you look out for multiple stakeholder groups, right? And I'm showing you a few on your screen, not necessarily because you have to hit all of them as you go. If you're a B Corp, you do, so we have to do that. But I don't think all businesses have to do that. This is kind of your ideal case scenario, but really looking at how do you impact, at the very least, right? The people closest to you. Maybe you're looking at the impact you have on your employees and how you serve that stakeholder group, or your suppliers, right? Or your customers. Maybe it's just about paying your taxes, right? But if you want to look at the broader stakeholder universe, then you look at, well, how does what we do impact society? And, how does the work we do impact the environment, right? So you kind of take your circle of concern and you widen it beyond your shareholder group and really broaden it to look at multiple stakeholders. So we find that solution works best. And the next generation steward of the future then looks something like this, right? So we notice that, the steward of the future is a change agent, right? They're interested in using business as a force of good in the world. They look at purpose. They try to understand impact. They have vision as to they want to model the world that they want to see, right? So these are the change agents. A lot of times these people are bridge builders. They seek engagement from all the stakeholders and buy-in from the people that they need to. They're also highly entrepreneurial, which means they are agile, right? The world moves much faster than it used to before, and being able to adapt and innovate is super, super important. So they are curious. They are accustomed to a certain level of risk and tend to move quickly. They are, results oriented. So as business owners, we have to remember our KPIs. But something that we realized very recently, especially during COVID, is that your next gen steward of the future is also high in empathy, right? In EQ. And the reason is because, in the past, when we weren't terribly concerned about empathy in organizations, we're finding that this is a huge asset in leaders in organizations when there's a crisis or when businesses have to evolve or change quickly and there's a high degree of uncertainty. Leaders of the future really do need to have a skill to be able to hold an organization together and steer it in the right direction. So I'm going to present to you two case studies, the first of which is, GenerationHope and Friends of Hope, which are sister organizations. GenerationHope is our for-profit entity, which is coupled with our nonprofit entity, Friends of Hope. The flagship product here is our bottled water, which you may have seen, at a Starbucks or a Seda or a Shangri-La. So this is Hope in a Bottle. And what we sought to do with the introduction of this product was to provide a market-based solution to address an important social issue. And in this case, it was education. We wanted to make sure we were delivering value in a crowded marketplace beyond profitability. So, for those of you in the audience who understand the bottled water space, this is a low margin business, which is very, very crowded, and we are a small player. So I think our unique selling proposition is not so much just the product, because it's a commodity. Water is a commodity. It's really, what do we deliver beyond that, right? So we do talk about how we invest in education and more recently, how our product does no harm when it comes to the environment, because we take 100% responsibility for our plastic footprint, and the water that we use is not taken from deep wells that were drilled and drained the aquifer. We only bottle water that naturally comes out of springs at the foot of Mount McKinley, Makiling, where we have our facility, and we don't use any pumps. So we're trying not to deplete the resources of the planet. I know that's a convenience because we're a small player and not necessarily applicable for large scale operators. But what we're trying to do is kind of demonstrate an ethos. It's a little bit of a virtue signaling, if you will. So we address investments in education, which have long-term ripple effects in the country's development and economy. We like to talk about the human capital index whenever we think of impact. And again, like I talked about with the plastic and the water management, we're very serious about that. And one of the things which we did very, very early on and finding that the market really likes is that we are 100% transparent about all the work we do, and we're accountable to the public for all of the impact. So if any of you go on to our website, on the Hope website, you will find a section there where it says, this is how many bottles of water we sold. This is how much money we raised as a result. These are the places we're building. The telephone number of the principal is there, as well as the contractor that we are using, which, by the way, is publicly bidded. We don't, it goes through a public bidding process, and it shows how much the bid was won at and the contact information of the contractor who's building the classroom. So there's full transparency and accountability for all the work that we do. And we're finding that the market really does value this sort of accountability. Before I go into the second case study, I'm going to show you how we got there. So I did mention earlier that the next gen CEO is entrepreneurial and opportunistic, and this is a really great way to demonstrate that. So Hope started in 2012 as Friends of Hope. It was a nonprofit. We are a 501c3 registered and PCNC accredited organization. Because I didn't know much about business back then, not to say that I know a lot now. I started as a for-profit, and the BIR very quickly said, no, you have commercial activities, you can't operate as a nonprofit. It's really funny because both SGV and I think the SEC lobbied for for Friends of Hope, because in fact 100% of our profit goes to building public school classrooms with DepEd. So in effect, we're kind of an unofficial tax collecting agency. But anyway, so just to be compliant, we set up GenerationHope, which is a for-profit. This is the company that eventually became the first B Corp in the Philippines, and it does the commercial operations, and the Friends of Hope then executes on the impact. So that's kind of where this started. And then, as I said, because we were concerned about, yes, we are providing water that hopefully helps to address a problem in education, but because we have single-use plastic, maybe we're helping in education, but then we're harming the planet. So we were very, very concerned and decided to problem solve around how does one take responsibility for their plastic footprint? Because my challenge to the team was, if we can't find a way to take responsibility for the plastic that we use, then we need to exit the bottled water business and find some other way to create impact. And that was actually a real blessing, because forcing yourself, necessity is the mother of innovation, right? They say. So because we were forced to really think about what is an effective way to deal with plastic waste in a way that can scale, because if it doesn't scale, it's not sustainable, and is affordable, right? Because if not, businesses won't adopt a practice that's not affordable. They might do it for a marketing, CSR, from 1 day a year photo op, but they won't make it part of their regular business practice. So we eventually found a way to do this at scale and cost effectively. And so Plastic Credit Exchange was born. The Plastic Credit Exchange in the Philippines is a nonprofit entity which deals with the offsetting of plastic waste. We cater to companies around the world. And this is not funny, but it is a true point. The Philippines a few years ago was infamously, identified as the third worst offender for ocean plastic pollution in the world. And that's not something you want to be known for. But actually in 2021, there was a revision study that came out that actually named the Philippines the first worst offender, because our rivers are our number one offender of pollution, plastic pollution. Pasig River specifically is number one. I think we have 3 of the top river polluting channels into the ocean. And so we've been bumped up to number 1. They say we account for 36% of the ocean plastic pollution, which somehow I find horrifying, but unbelievable as well. But either way, I don't think we want to be anywhere within those we want to be known in the top 10 for something else, and it's not plastic pollution. So this is the origin story of PCX. We have established an entity in Singapore and the US, and now we are catering to companies, not just in the Philippines, to try and clean up plastic waste post-consumer. So the PCX case study talks about, again, we believe in market-based mechanisms as part of a solution to address, in this case, an environmental crisis, rather than previously when I was talking about education. We deliver value by approaching the problem both from a business point of view. So, coming from a brand, I need this to be affordable and scalable. We also come from an environmental organization perspective. As Cliff mentioned earlier, I sit on the board of trustees of WWF Philippines. So I was very aware of the concerns around how these credits or these offsets should be designed so that they kind of address the issues that the environmental groups are concerned about. And then also from the government point of view. So PCX was very involved in helping craft the legislation of EPR that will be introduced by various senators, I believe in January or February. So we help companies address responsibility beyond profitability and more towards ESG. And for those of you who deal with investors, this is becoming a very, very important part of a company's footprint, thinking about their ESG. We position all our policies and operations towards being a mechanism towards compliance, precisely because, regulation is fast approaching. And so we want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to meet the goals of government as well as environmental concerns. We take into account as many SDGs as possible in our impact work, and here are some of 7 of the ones that we try to hit the most in our work. And we commit to 100% transparency and accountability to the public for all our impact, just like we did in education and found to work quite well. And again, this is virtue signaling, aligning our corporate values with market values, because things like this don't really work in a vacuum. It really needs to appeal to the broader aspirations of the market. So I'm going to leave you with what I normally ask leaders at the end of a session is, what's the big picture challenge? And I think as a leader of an organization, you need to ask yourself, what space do you occupy in the broader world beyond, the walls of your office? What space do you occupy, and what space do you want to occupy? And maybe one way to answer that is, what do we owe each other? So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. And I hope there was value add in speaking today.
Thank you, Nanette. That was pretty inspiring. For those of you who don't know what Hope in a Bottle is, this is the bottle you'll find in Starbucks stores, in Seda, and several other outlets. So this is more just buying bottled water. So I have a few questions.
Sure.
The first is, you did mention in one of your slides that, like in particular in the case of the bottled water, we deliver value in a crowded marketplace beyond profitability.
Yeah.
So it seems like, in contrast, with all the talk about sustainability and the push for an agenda of long-term value creation, there are shifts in 2 levels. It's not just a shift from short-term to long-term, but there's also a shift in the way value is being defined. Traditionally, as a finance person, it's defined as EBITDA or earnings per share. But apparently, with the increase in social enterprises, there's a demand for a shift in the way value is defined, or at least it has to be complemented with some other measure that reflects a holistic human development approach. How do you drive this kind of shift within your organizations?
In our case, the better case there might be more Century than Hope, because in the case of Hope or PCX, there's no shift that's needed because the organizations were founded and built on those values, right? So there really wasn't a shift that was needed. But maybe if you take Century, or maybe not Shakey's because that's more recent, but a group like Century is an interesting example because there was a shift, right? So they came from defining value in a very traditional way, Cliff, as you mentioned, and kind of evolved into a company that started to define value more broadly, right? So if you take a look now at the way, at the annual reports of Century, you'll see a very heavy leaning towards ESG. That does not mean that they are only concerned about social good. They are certainly concerned about their quarterly earnings and all of that. The things that all the investors, rely on them to, provide returns in that way, in a traditional way. But they are also very, very aware of the role they play in the rest of the world, right? Their responsibility to that stakeholder group that I shared. That is, and I can attest to the fact this is not just something that's for press release, but in the boardroom, the family, the board members and even management has a heavily weighs in on the values, the other bottom lines, the other bottom lines outside of profitability. And I think it takes time. So to your point, how do you do it? I think you do it slowly. You start with values that appeal to the organization so that it's not being driven by one person at the top. I think you see, what do the people care about, and see if that aligns nicely into what the business is capable of delivering, right? It could be, you are crazy about, nutrition, but you are Globe, and that's not your core competency, right? So if you can kind of align your competencies together with what the organization values, so that it's not just a top-driven sort of initiative, I think that's a great way to go. And over time, even if you have to fake it in the beginning, at some point this becomes very real for organizations, for investors. Employees value. Come on, Cliff. Back then, it was just when we graduated from school, it was like, who pays the most, right? That's where I'm going to work. But today, the workforce is not like that. Young people now want to know, they want to work for a company that does the right thing, represents their values. They want to know that they're part of something bigger than themselves. So if you in a race for talent, this is also a pragmatic approach.
So as you build, you mentioned talent. As you built your organization, the fact that you have a social impact agenda, how is that an advantage, and how is that a challenge for your company? Does having a social impact agenda affect having to do some trade-offs with profits? Therefore, if there's that trade-off, there's a conflict in that sense that you need to manage. How do you manage that, and how does that impact the way you hire people, the kind of people you bring into the organization?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So I think it's the answer there is a little bit of both, right? So you just need to understand which one outweighs the other, right? So in the case of Hope, what's interesting, somebody told me the other day, who she just got out of college, and this is her first job. She's applying for a job, and she said something that was really striking to me. And Hope is very, very lucky. So is PCX. We get amazing talent in our pipeline of, people who want to work for us, precisely because I think this is what, the young people want to do, something that's meaningful, but they want to be paid for it at the same time. We're not a charity. This is not a foundation. GenerationHope is a for-profit. We run it as a business. And so is PCX, right? Especially the offshore entities. So, if there's no profit, then there's no purpose. We can't do anything. So what we find, this woman was saying, she's never interviewed at an organization for which there's such a high concentration of like-minded people who just gravitate towards doing social good. And she, more than anything, more than mission, she gravitates towards that kind. The organization is the reason why she's coming on board. So in the hiring side, it's great for us. It's really wonderful. We get, top, level talent applying at both Hope and PCX. So that's an upside, right? And the other upside is we love what we do. The kind of energy we have in the organization is great. But the trade-off that you were talking about is, in all the starry eyes around us, many times we will have to, and today is one of those, by the way, where you'll have to make some very difficult decisions because there's a reality check, right? Look, we are a business. We need to be run efficiently. We are answerable to, a multiple stakeholder group. And that means we're going to have to make some hard choices. So yes, it is difficult. Profitability is sacrificed because you're trying to make, you're trying to balance things. But the nice thing is sometimes the financial sacrifice is acceptable to the organization because they know they're here beyond financial reasons.
Mm-hmm. So it has to be driven by like the example you gave a century earlier. It really has to be driven by initially the investors or the board of the company, and then maybe followed by the demand in the market. So it's not just, it's not just the founder. It's not just a single person who's pushing for it. And in that sense, it seems like the more people talk about the importance of a social impact, the more the awareness increases, and therefore that affects your demand. It also affects the investor side. So that's, and many people find it difficult to, especially if you're coming from a traditional way of doing business. Positive social impact just becomes, as you say, a photo op opportunity, and that's what we want to change, I think.
Yeah, well, let me just speak to the Century point a little bit, only because I kind of had a front row seat to how that evolved over time, right? So I don't think it starts with the investors necessarily, because in the Century case, it didn't. It didn't start with the investors demanding something. I think there was a legitimate desire to have impact from the owner. Remember, Century wasn't always publicly listed, right? It was privately held before by the family, and I think looking at the values of owners kind of helps you understand where things go. So when it started, the interest in impact started before Century went public. I think when it went public, it took a little bit of a backseat because they weren't sure, whether the work that they wanted to do, if it was going to take a bite out of profitability, they were a little bit concerned. So I think that took a little bit of a backseat. I don't know that, at least from my point of view, just seeing the activity. But I think what Century has done a really good job of is saying, how can we be impactful without sacrificing profitability? Because they haven't. And the nice thing about investors is they don't feel it, right? So I think what Century did is kind of did an audit of the ways that they can be impactful without hitting their bottom line. What does that mean? Maybe they're supporting nutrition programs with Class AB products, right? That doesn't come out of their profitability, right? Because that AB products are things that you would have had to probably write off anyway, right? But they are good products. They can't go, though, into trade. So what do you do with that? Well, let's try and do something useful with that, right? Or, there are a lot of ways for which Century, they wanted to be carbon neutral in the plants in Mindanao. So, they kind of looked at ways for which they can deliver impact without necessarily sacrificing profitability, and they did a really good job of that. So if you look at any of kind of the returns over the quarters for which they were public, you will not see a chunk out of. I think investors would balk if they said, "Oh, well, we had to write off 1 or 2% because we're doing ESG." They will not see that. I think Century's done a very good job of looking inside, looking internally, and just adjusting slowly, testing things slowly to see where we can deliver impact for, without sacrificing profitability. And they've done it.
Okay, we have 5 more minutes. Maybe the last question would be around what lessons or what advice would you give next generation CEOs and entrepreneurs? Because we clearly see that the direction is not only profitability. There has to be a positive social impact. And in many cases, we already see enterprises that are primarily driven not by profit, but by positive social impact. It happens to be that the profitability is a requirement for sustainability to deliver that positive social impact. So what kind of lessons or advice can you share with these next gen CEOs or entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I think, look, companies are run by people, and I don't think anyone's inherently evil and has the goal to go out there and be, no, I mean, really, right? This is, let's be real here. Companies are run by people, and people are driven by, they're fundamentally good, I believe, regardless of the stuff that we see in the news. But I think what needs to happen is 3 things. One is, I think people were afraid before about having to make a choice between profitability and purpose. But I think it's become very clear, if you look at the marketplace, whether it's, Starbucks or, any company you see out there that has heavy purpose in it, you'll realize that profit and purpose are not mutually exclusive. So there is no longer a need to be afraid. There are best practices that you can look at and follow, right? So don't be afraid. The second is don't be swayed by, what Starbucks is doing or what PCX or Hope or Century is doing. I think what you do is you look inside and you say, what's natural to me? What do I care about? What do I want to invest in? Because then it's authentic, and it becomes worthwhile for you to invest in, right? Whether it's your time or the company's resources or how you do business. So that's the second thing. Find what's natural to you. And then the third is remember that I'm hoping that at some point during my lifetime, the term social enterprise is no longer used, because you want best practice to actually become normal practice. And normal practice means that all enterprises are social, right? And that there wouldn't then need to be a distinction. So if you can remember those three things, right? Profit and purpose are not mutually exclusive. Choose something that's natural to you and know that all enterprises are social.
Wow. Well, thanks a lot for your interesting insights, Nanette, and continue to be an inspiration to us and to the next generation. Thank you very much for that. Everyone, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the breakout sessions, and we'll see you at the closing plenary, where we're going to talk about certain topics with the Forbes Asia 30 Under 30 awardees. Thank you, everyone. See you later.